Thank you very much. Good afternoon, all of you. Welcome back to the Water Resources Engineering 2 class. Now we are in the Unit 3, Earth dams and spillways. And we discussed about the types of spillways in the previous class, previous two classes, followed by the design principles of the OGI spillway. We worked out one problem, followed by one or two small videos also we have seen. In today's lecture, we study about the energy dissipators and stirling basins, significance of jump height curve and tailwater rating curve. Jump height curve, JHC, we shall see what it is. Tailwater rating curve, TWC, and we shall see what is this TWC and what are the energy dissipators and the stirling basins. When the water is flowing through the spillway, from higher level to the lower levels. That means from the upstream of the reservoir to upstream level of the dam, when the water is flowing, there will be conversion of energy that takes place. Why it happens? Energy. More and more potential energy, maybe the sum of the pressure energy and the elevation energy. When this excess water is allowed to flow over the body of the spillway dam and letting off to the downstream portion, it falls directly from high level to the low level. So there will be conversion of energy that is taking place. You can see here in the figure, water is directly falling, possessing more and more potential energy directly to the downstream portion. As a result of which, conversion of energy, kinetic energy, will be there at this portion. So the water which is falling from higher energy levels to the lower energy levels, the conversion of energy from potential energy to the kinetic energy takes place. So the water reaching the toe of the spillway has the energy content corresponding to the upstream reservoir level. Even if you neglect the frictional losses, directly whatever is the level in the upstream side of the dam, corresponding to that, it possesses the energy. It possesses the energy. So when this water is falling maybe from normal pool level to the maximum pool level water, which is flowing over the crest of the spillway, directly it comes out and it falls at the foot of the spillway, downstream foot of the spillway. As such, lot of energy gets converted and kinetic energy, more and more kinetic energy will be there at the time of striking the downstream foot of the spillway. So we need to look at this energy and additional energy to be dissipated safely. If the energy is not dissipated comfortably, what will happen? Because it comes out and falls with high kinetic energy, it exerts a big thrust on the downstream foot of the spillway. Because of this thrust created by the falling water and the downstream foot of the spillway, two things may happen. One is that the material which is directly coming, the material which is available at the bottom of the spillway may be eroded away. Erosion may take place. The other thing is because it is falling with high kinetic energy, lot of impact will be there at the downstream portion. The result of impact is the erosion. So if that erosion is there or it exists, so a lot of material which is used to construct the dam at the downstream portion will be eroded away, leading to the unsafety for the structure. So our main concentration is to see that the energy should be safely dissipated at the downstream foot of the spillway. So the excess energy over that corresponding to the rear maximum flood level has to be suitably dissipated. If no energy dissipation arrangements are provided, the surplus energy dissipates itself by forming scour craters in rear of the dam, which may endanger the stability of the structure. Sometimes the spillway and hence the dam also may become unstable because of this high pressure and the thrust created by the falling water from upstream to the downstream portion. These energy dissipation arrangements are known as the energy dissipators. We shall see now in today's class what is this principle of energy dissipation and what types of energy dissipators would be provided. So the simple principle for dissipating energy, so this is in the figure, it is clearly given that this is the mass concrete spillway. Head over the crust level is this, and the amount of water corresponding to the over and above the crust level is falling directly to the downstream portion or the foot of the spillway, leading to huge impact of this falling water. In this particular case, what has been done is a subsidiary dam has been constructed. You see, this is the spillway. At the downstream portion, at the downstream foot of the spillway, after a certain distance, another small subsidiary overflow dam is provided. The purpose of providing this subsidiary dam here is to dissipate the energy of the flowing water at the downstream portion. If this water or the energy that is possessed by the water is not suitably dissipated, there will be a problem of lot of scouring. So this downstream portion may get scoured or eroded. Because of this scouring, the dam may be in a problem. That entire safety of the dam may be in a problem. In planning the energy dissipators, the nature of device to be employed as well as the character of the river bed also should be considered. What type of energy dissipator you are trying to provide at the downstream portion? Also, what is the character of the river bed? These two things should be considered. The basic principles that are used for the energy dissipation are, some of the principles employed in the design of the energy dissipation arrangements are to form a hydraulic jump. This is one principle that is being adopted. We know what is the hydraulic jump. It is all sudden and turbulent passage of water which is changing its state maybe from supercritical state to the subcritical state. So at the downstream foot of the spillway, when the water is falling from higher energy levels, maybe possessing more potential energy, getting converted into kinetic energy, formation of jump takes place. Hydraulic jump will be formed. So during this hydraulic jump, in our second year fluid mechanics, we already seen rapidly varied flow. So huge variation in the depth of flow for a very smaller distances. So for a small short span of the channel, there will be huge variation in the depth of flow, leading to the change of state from supercritical to the subcritical state. And hence there will be loss of energy. What do we say? Loss of energy now is the dissipated energy dissipated. This is one principle that is adopted to see that the energy is dissipated. Second is direct impact of high velocity water on the solid boundary. At the downstream foot of the spillway, the thickness of the apron or the boundary is so designed in such a way that it will be able to resist the impact due to this falling water. High velocity water which is falling at the downstream foot of the spillway will be absorbed because we are providing a solid apron, mass concrete apron again. Third one, mutual impact of high velocity jet. So there will be a jet of water which comes out and then rises. You must have seen in some of the videos also recently in many of the dams, particularly most of the. So the number of gates are open and allowing the water to flow to the downstream portion. In such case, what will happen? There will be high velocity jet which comes out, and this high velocity jet will be once again to see that it is struck with another velocity jet in the opposite direction, resulting in reduction or dissipation of the energy. Deflection of high velocity filament onto the top. This is another methodology that would be taken up to see that the water which is falling to the downstream foot of the spillway will be allowed to rise to a higher level. When it is allowed to rise to a very higher level and then fall down, naturally then more and more energy will be dissipated. Next one is the air entrainment. This is another principle. So whenever a hydraulic jump is formed, the first one that we are trying to see, hydraulic jump formation. Whenever a hydraulic jump is formed, you may see that when the water is falling from a high level to the low level here, conversion of energy from potential energy to kinetic energy. So at the foot of the spillway, the flow becomes supercritical. Because the flow is supercritical here, very immediately within a very short span of the channel, it tries to get converted into the subcritical flow. In this portion, there will be formation of the jump, turbulent movement of water. Hydraulic jump is a turbulent movement of water, change of state of water from supercritical state to the subcritical state. So when the stream of water moving with a high velocity and low depth, that is a supercritical flow, strikes the another stream of water moving with low velocity and high depth, subcritical, then there will be a sudden rise in the surface of the former that is taking place. So there will be change of state from supercritical to subcritical. This phenomenon is called hydraulic jump. The formation of the hydraulic jump is always accompanied by a large scale turbulence and dissipation of most of the kinetic energy. So if this energy is dissipated, the downstream portion of the spillway becomes safer. So if it is safe, the life of the downstream portion of the spillway will be more. So if the jump is low, the change in the depth is small. The water will not rise abruptly, but passes through a number of undulations. If this jump is called undular jump, the energy dissipation in this case is very small because it is the first category of the jump. As we have already seen the classification of various types of jumps earlier in our hydraulics and hydraulic machinery also, you must be knowing that in the undular jump, the energy dissipation will be very, very small because the change in depth of flow is very small. If the jump is high, change in depth is large and the water surface also rises abruptly, and this is called a direct jump, and in this case energy dissipation will be more. We try to see and design our spillway and the downstream foot of the spillway in such a way that to the maximum extent possible the kinetic energy is dissipated and more kinetic energy dissipation takes place. This figure gives you here that a overflow portion of a dam, that is a spillway, wherein you have the water over and above the crest level. So a sheet of water is falling to the downstream portion, overflow of water, and this is called the foot of the spillway. At this foot of the spillway, you may see here lot of turbulence is taking place. Lot of turbulence is taking place, and then on the further downstream side, you have the tailwater. So the water which is at the upstream level at maximum flood level has to join to the downstream portion tailwater level. The downstream portion tailwater level. So to have this movement of water, flow of water over the surface, and at the foot of the spillway there will be formation of the hydraulic jump, lot of energy dissipation takes place. Finally, the depth will be directly equal to the subcritical flow depth by 2, the subcritical flow depth. So when the supercritical flow is changing, say y1 at the foot of the spillway is to change to y2 the subcritical depth, there will be change of the state of flow from supercritical to subcritical, and hence the formation of the hydraulic jump. Sudden and turbulent passage of water is the basic phenomena in the hydraulic jump. So this is called the length of the jump. The portion through which it is extended is called the length of the jump. Usually the portion little beyond up to that from the foot of the spillway is provided with a solid concrete apron. All this portion is a solid concrete apron. The purpose of providing this concrete apron is that when the water is directly creating impact, exerting thrust on the downstream portion of the spillway, it should be able to resist all this thrust coming because of the kinetic energy of water. So bottom portion or at the downstream foot of the spillway, a solid concrete apron will be provided. Several other measures also will be taken up. Let us see also how to fix the total length of the apron and what type of other devices are required to be used to dissipate this excess energy. We shall see. So coming to the theory of this hydraulic jump and its formation, let us try to understand understand what types of jumps are there. Depending upon the incoming flow and the Froude's number, initial Froude's number FR1, the jump on a horizontal floor can be classified. If the initial Froude number FR1 is equal to 1, there will be no hydraulic jump formation. If the Froude number is less than 1, the flow becomes subcritical. As we know very well, the flows in the channels are classified subcritical, critical, and supercritical. If the value of the Froude number is less than 1, subcritical flow, no question of forming any jump, because for the hydraulic jump to form, supercritical flow to subcritical flow, change of flow state. So if the value of the Froude number is equal to 1, the flow is critical, no jump can form. If the value of the Froude number is between 1 to 1.7, it is angular jump. As we have seen in the previous figure also, small undulations will be there on the water surface, energy dissipation will be very less, change in depth of flow from supercritical to subcritical flow also will be very small. Difference in depth is small, and energy dissipation also will be small. If the value of the Froude number is between 1.7 to 2.5, it is called weak jump. Energy loss is low. Downstream water surface remains smooth. The velocity distribution is fairly uniform. If the value of the Froude number is between 2.5 to 4.5, it is known as oscillating jump. The energy dissipators and the stilling basins are to be designed carefully, making use of this jump. So at this stage, where the value of the Froude number is between 2.5 to 4.5, which is called the oscillating jump, we need to design the proper energy dissipator and stilling basin of the apron at the downstream foot of the spillway. When the value of the Froude number is between 4.5 to 9, it is called steady jump, and it is a well-balanced jump. Energy dissipation will be ranging about 45 to 70%. If the value of the Froude number is more than 9, a strong jump forms and energy dissipation may reach up to 85%. These are all the various types of hydraulic jumps. Less than or equal to 1, no hydraulic jump formation. Between 1 to 1.7, initial Froude number, angular jump, and between 1.7 to 2.5 is the weak jump. Between 2.5 to 4.5, oscillating jump. 4.5 to 9 is steady jump. Greater than 9 is a strong jump. Let us recollect what are the formula related to analyzing the hydraulic jump. The various formula will be, various hydraulic jump formula will be like, if small q is the discharge per unit width, V1 and Y1 are the velocity and the depth of flow before the hydraulic jump. That means at the supercritical state. And V2 and Y2 are the velocity and the depth of flow after the jump. And F1, the initial Froude number, F2 is the Froude number, 1 minute, F2 is the Froude number after the jump. F2 is the Froude number after the jump. So you have V1, V2, velocity before the jump, velocity after the jump, Y1 and Y2, depth of flow, initial and sequent. So these are called the conjugated depths, as you may be aware and recollect. Y1 and Y2 are the conjugated depths. Y1 is the initial depth before the jump, Y2 is the sequent depth after the jump. And small q is the discharge per unit width. Froude numbers are like F1, F2 or FR1, FR2 as per the convenience we may use. Froude number for the supercritical state of flow, and F2 is the Froude number for the subcritical state of flow. So for the given values of the initial and sequent depths of Y1 and Y2, then Y1 and Y2 are related in terms of the discharge small q per unit width, also the Froude number, initial Froude number FR1. So Y2 will be equal to minus Y1 by 2 plus square root of Y1 square by 4 minus plus 2q square by G by 1. Similarly, Y2 will be equal to minus Y1 by 2 into minus 1 plus 1 square root of 1 plus 8f1 square. F1 is the initial Froude number. So these two may be used, to find the values of the initial and sequent depths or the discharge required of the Froude number. If two parameters are given, the other third one can be found. So what is the energy that would be dissipated by forming this hydraulic jump? So the energy loss in this hydraulic jump, delta E, may be taken to be the difference of the specific energies at both the sections. At section 1, the supercritical state of a flow. At section 2, where the subcritical flow starts. So the difference between the specific energy values, Y1 plus V1 square by 2G, Y2 plus V2 square by 2G. The difference of these two specific energy values would give you the energy that is dissipated, loss of energy. So this is given to be delta E equal to Y2 minus Y1 whole cube by 4 Y1 Y2. I'm not taking up the derivations for the relation between the conjugate depths, also the expression for loss of energy, because this has already been covered in our hydraulics and hydraulic machinery second year level. So delta E is the energy dissipated as the loss of energy, which can be computed in terms of the depths of flows. Initial depth and sequent depths Y1 and Y2 are known. Y2 minus Y1 whole cube by 4 Y1 Y2 gives you the loss of energy or the energy dissipated. The height of the jump, hydraulic jump, would be the difference between the levels, difference between the two depths of flows Y2 and Y1. Similarly, the length through which the hydraulic jump extends would be approximately 5 to 7 times the difference in the depths, or on an average 6 times, sometimes 5 times the difference in the depths of flows will be taken. The depths Y1 and Y2 are known as the initial and sequent depths for the jump. Collectively are called the conjugate depths. So this figure gives you that there is a formation of a spillway, below which at the foot of the spillway you have the depth Y1 forming the supercritical state of a flow, and after forming the hydraulic jump it is reaching to the depth Y2. So Y1, Y2 initial and sequent depths, and the corresponding formulae also has been given here. Okay. So the use of this hydraulic jump in energy dissipation. So in the figure, when you have the flow of water which is falling from high level, potential energy gets converted to kinetic energy, formation of the hydraulic jump here. Because there is a formation of the hydraulic jump, there is change in the state of a flow at the foot of the spillway supercritical flow to the tailwater subcritical flow. Because there is a change in state of flow from supercritical to subcritical state, there is formation of a hydraulic jump, and this hydraulic jump is utilized in dissipating the energy. For a given value of Y1 at the toe of the dam, tailwater depth equal to Y2 is required for formation of this hydraulic jump. If Y2 is available, the jump forms and a part of the energy is dissipated. A suitable type of energy dissipator is to be designed so that the jump forms on the solid apron for all discharges over the spillway. Why I say all discharges is that all the time head over the crust may not be same. It depends on the inflow flood into the reservoir. If more inflow flood is there into the reservoir, head over the crust will be more amount of water may be falling to the downstream foot of the spillway, impact is more, high kinetic energy will be there. So it is variable parameter. So we need to see that for any discharge which is flowing here over the crest of the spillway, there should be formation of the hydraulic jump. So this is possible only when for a given depth of supercritical depth Y1, there should be a depth Y2. Then only hydraulic jump forms. If Y2 is available, if the hydraulic jump is formed, certain portion of the total energy will be dissipated. Certain portion of the total energy will be dissipated. So a suitable type of energy dissipator is to be designed so that the jump forms on the solid apron for various discharges. The solid apron length is this. So only in the length of this solid apron, hydraulic jump should form so as to enable the dissipation of energy. Though there is energy dissipation due to the formation of the jump, the velocity distribution is not, however, restored to that pattern obtaining in a natural stream, which means to say, even if there is formation of hydraulic jump and change of state from supercritical to subcritical, energy dissipation is taking place. However, it will not be directly meeting the requirement of the subcritical flow at the tailwater. That means the velocity distribution is not restored as that of the velocity distribution at the tailwater or in a natural stream. High velocities still persist near the bed, and hence covering may occur even if you are extending the length of the foot of the spillway in terms of creating a mass concrete solid apron, but still there is a possibility of the covering. Therefore, besides creating the hydraulic jump, other devices such as end seals, baffles are also required to be employed. Of course, one more, chute blocks also we provide. We shall see what is this chute block, end seal, baffle. The purpose of providing these type of auxiliary devices is to see that more and more energy is dissipated. That means already some quantity of energy is dissipated by forming the hydraulic jump. The rest of the total energy which has been left over is to be suitably dissipated by providing the auxiliary devices such as chute blocks, end seals, and buffers over the length of the solid apron which is provided at the downstream portion of the spillway. For various discharges over the spillway, the tailwater depth available in the stream and the depth of flow y are known from tailwater rating curve and the jump height curve. These are the two things, and based on the relative position of the tailwater curve as well as the jump height curve, we will be able to know what type of depth is available there, and we will be able to design a suitable type of the energy dissipating arrangement. A suitable type of energy dissipating arrangement. What is this tailwater curve, TWC? It is a curve representing the tailwater depth with a discharge small q. Similarly, JHC is a curve representing the post jump depth y2 with the discharge. So you have y1, the initial depth, y2, the sequent depth, followed by the depth of flow in the tailwater, normal depth, subcritical depth. So depending on the relative position of the tailwater curve as well as the jump height curve, the TWC and JHC is suitable type of energy dissipator making use of the hydraulic jump is designed. So how do we classify these energy dissipators? It is convenient to study various energy dissipators employing the principle of hydraulic jump according to the classification given. Like you have 5 types of classifications, like TWC coinciding with the jump height curve, TWC is lying above the y2 curve, or TWC lying below the y2 curve, TWC lying above y2 curve at a small discharge, lying below the y2 curve at larger discharges, and the reverse. And the reverse. What is this reverse? This is TWC lying above, the TWC is lying below the y2 curve at small discharge and above the y2 curve for large discharge. Let us see all these 5. The tailwater rating curve is plotted from the hydraulic data of the rear channel. The y2 curve is plotted for different calculated values of the y2, knowing the values of q and y1. We already seen the equations relating the initial depth and the sequent depth and small q. Once you know the small q and y1, y2 can be known. If you know the value of y2 versus the discharge q provides you the jump height curve. Similarly, the tailwater curve can be drawn. So the discharge q versus the depth will give you the corresponding curves. So TWC coinciding with the jump height curve for all the discharges. The first case that you see, TWC tailwater curve coinciding with the jump height curve for all discharges. In respect to the value of the discharge, now you have one curve for y2 and another curve for the tailwater rating curve, TWC. Both are coinciding one over the other. Both are overlapping one over the other. TWC coinciding with the jump height curve for all discharges. Similarly, the second case is like TWC lying above the y2 curve for all discharges. You see the dotted lines is giving you the y2 curve, and the TWC tailwater rating curve is the solid line. So the dotted line, solid line, y2 curve here, and TWC is above the y2 curve for all discharges. Similarly, TWC is below the y2 curve for all discharges. This is the third case. Then the fourth case will be like you have partly above, partly below. Similarly, partly below, partly above. Tailwater rating curve lying above the y2 curve at a small discharge and below the y2 curve for at large discharges. And the reverse of the case 4 is case 5. So you have total 5 cases. Let us try to resolve these 5 cases by suggesting the appropriate energy dissipating mechanism. Case 1 is TWC directly coinciding with the y2 curve, tallying with the y2 curve. So you have a graph on the plot. You are taking the depth of a flow on the y-axis, and to the same scale for both TWC and JHC, if you draw, taking the discharge per unit width on the x-axis, you may be getting both the curves coinciding directly. This is the case 1. This is the ideal condition for the hydraulic jump formation. The hydraulic jump forms at the toe of the spillway at all the discharges. A simple concrete apron of length 5 times y2 minus y1 is enough to provide the protection in the region of the jump. Sometimes chute blocks, baffle piers, and end seals are also provided in the stilling basin to reduce the length of apron. So this is how there is a coinciding curve, like Y2 and TWC are coinciding, and you need to provide at the downstream foot of the spillway a solid apron is to be provided. See, if you know the values of Y2 and Y1, 5 times Y2 minus Y1 would be equal to the approximate length of the solid apron required to be provided for this type of jump formation. So if this is the downstream foot of the spillway, from the downstream foot of the spillway, a solid apron is provided. All this is the solid apron. Usually, the spillway and the apron are made monolithic. They are made monolithic. So this is section where the hydraulic jump is formed. I mean, the supercritical flow starts Y2, and this is the jump. This is the location where you have. I mean, this is Y1. I mean, this is Y2. So in between Y1 and Y2, there is the formation of the hydraulic jump. At the end of this monolithic structure, like a solid apron, sometimes an end seal also will be provided. By providing this end seal, little more energy may be dissipated so as to protect the downstream river bed safer from the scour. Case 2 will be TWC above the Y2 curve. In this case, Y2 is always below the tailwater, and the jump forming at the toe is drowned by the tailwater and no energy is dissipated. The high velocity water travels along the channel bottom for longer length before getting dissipated, and this is obviated by constructing a sloping apron above the riverbed level. Earlier case we have seen a horizontal apron. Now for the case 2, it is a sloping apron. The jump forms on the sloping apron where the depth equals to Y2 is available, and the slope of the apron must be such that the jump forms at some point on the sloping apron for all the discharges. So you have the case where TWC and Y2 are different, not coinciding, and for all discharges, the tailwater rating curve is above the Y2 curve. This is the case 2 that we are trying to look at. So for this, we may need to provide a sloping apron. A sloping apron is to be provided. So in this case, the shooting flow continues for the considerable distance downstream before the hydraulic jump is formed. The remedy is to provide a sky jump bucket type of energy dissipator. So this is a spillway at the downstream. The energy dissipator is provided. Energy dissipator is provided like this. So this is called a sky jump energy dissipator. The water which is falling here is letting once again to move up to raise its level and then fall. Thereby, some more energy gets dissipated here. Case 3 is TWC below the Y2 curve. It can also be solved by providing a sloping apron below the riverbed, and the required depth Y2 is obtained on this sloping apron to form the jump. A sunk basin is formed to increase the depth. So just reverse case of case 2, where you have TWC always below for all discharges below the Y2 curve. Below the Y2 curve. So for both the cases, a sloping apron like this is the solution. Compared to a horizontal apron, the apron is sloping, so that the formation of the hydraulic jump takes place with respect to the foot of the spillway. The hydraulic jump formation takes place wherever the depth of flow becomes Y2. Wherever the depth of flow becomes Y2, hydraulic jump will be formed. So a sloping apron is provided. Some cases, as we have seen, a sunk basin also will be provided like this. Case 4 is TWC lying above the Y2 curve at small discharge and below the Y2 curve at large discharge. Tailwater curve lies above the Y2 curve at small discharge and below the Y2 curve for high discharge. In this case, at low discharges, the jump will be drowned. At high discharge, the tailwater depth is inadequate. So the solution to this problem lies in providing a sloping apron partly above and partly below the riverbed. So this is how it will be provided. With respect to the riverbed, the sloping apron partly above the and partly below the riverbed. For low discharges, the jump forms on the apron above the bed, and for high discharges, the jump forms below the riverbed. Okay, so this is the case where case 4, where your TWC and Y2 are crossing here, stating that for low discharges, TWC is above, and for TWC is below, and TWC will be above for high discharges. So you can see here, this is a sloping apron which has been provided partly above the riverbed level. This is the bed level, partly above the sloping and partly below the sloping is there. So to take care of both the instances of low discharge and high discharge. Case 5 is the tailwater depth is inadequate at low discharges and is greater at high discharges. The case is just reversed to that of a case 4, and the solution is the same, valid for this condition also. So you have horizontal apron and you have a sloping apron which is provided. The slope of this apron also will depend on the position at which the Y2 is, the required Y2 is obtained. A stilling basin. What is this stilling basin? We have seen about a solid apron which is being provided from the downstream foot of the spillway. So what is this stilling basin? Jump type stilling basin. A stilling basin may be defined as a structure in which the energy dissipation action is confined. If the phenomenon of hydraulic jump is basically used for dissipating the energy, it may be called hydraulic jump type of stilling basin. The auxiliary devices, as we have already mentioned, like end seals, baffles, chute blocks, also may be used as an additional measure for controlling the jump so that more energy can be dissipated. So hydraulic jump type stilling basin with a horizontal apron. In this case, the requisite depth of formation of hydraulic jump can be obtained on an apron near or at the ground level. Hydraulic jump type stilling basins are useful for the spillways on the weak bedrock conditions, weirs and barrages on sand or loose gravel. This type of stilling basin can be classified into two categories. Stilling basin in which the value of the Froude number is less than 4.5. This is case generally encountered on the weirs and barrages. Second case is that the stilling basin in which the Froude number is more than 4.5. This case is generally a feature of medium or high dams. So you can see here how a stilling basin is provided at the downstream foot of the spillway. So the entire stilling basin is provided with certain auxiliary devices which we have been mentioning. What are these auxiliary? What are these auxiliary devices? Anything to speak? What are these auxiliary devices? So these are the auxiliary devices like chute blocks for the additional dissipation of energy. In the middle of this solid apron, the baffle piers will be provided, and at the end, an end seal will be provided. So these are the auxiliary devices which are provided on the solid apron to dissipate more amount of energy. Chute blocks are placed at the entrance of the basin, as we have seen in the figure. These are the chute blocks which are provided at the entrance of the basin to split the jet and lifting a portion it off the floor, and thereby providing a shorter length of the basin than would be possible without them. So by providing the chute block, you are now dividing the entire jet. Further, because there is a chute block in terms of an obstruction, the flow which is coming here shall rise and fall here. So some amount of energy gets dissipated. Because there is some amount of energy getting dissipated here, the total length of this solid block which is required to be provided can be reduced, so it becomes economical. So these blocks also tend to improve the action of the jump. You can see here in the stilling basin how the chute blocks are provided. You can see this is the figure. All intermittent blocks which are provided here, like baffle piers. So these are the blocks placed within the basin, and they increase the turbulence in the basin and help to stabilize the formation of the hydraulic jump. For high velocities, they may be damaged due to cavitation, hence suitable for small works such as low spillways. End seal. This is the end seal. The end seals are used primarily for a scour control. They deflect the high velocity filaments to the top and encourage the formation of a ground roller which shifts the deepest scour further off from the edge of the apron. So from this edge of the apron, when the water is not directly falling at this edge, the edge will be directly in contact with the end seal and the solid apron, which becomes a little more safer. So we have seen about the auxiliary devices as well as the apron along with the hydraulic jump formation. So summary for this class is that water reaching to the toe of the spillway dam has very high velocity and possesses a lot of kinetic energy. So this energy is to be dissipated. It can be dissipated in several ways before it gets dissipated by scouring the downstream bed of the river. Because if it is covering the downstream bed of the river, this may endanger the dam. So it is not desirable to cover the downstream bed. Hydraulic jump is made to form in many of the energy dissipators. A suitable type of energy dissipator is provided from the knowledge of tailwater curve and jump height curve, JHC and TWC. To reduce the length of the apron and stabilize the formation of the jump, auxiliary devices such as chute locks, buffels, and end seals also are provided in the stilling basin. So we have seen about the hydraulic jump formation and the stilling basin, and the auxiliary devices which are provided at different locations of the stilling basin so as to dissipate the energy successfully, not causing any harm either to the dam or not to cover the downstream of the spillway portion. Thank you very much. This finishes